this is what I wanted.
Hello, everybody. I'm BMillzebub. Welcome to the channel. Tonight, I've got a panel of people who have wonderfully agreed to join me. Got a panel. What's that? Yeah. Okay, so let me just do this the easy way. See if this will work. Yep. All right. So if everybody could go around and introduce yourselves and a little bit about yourselves. And if you have channels, please show yourselves. Who would like to go first?
I'll go for sure. Hi, I'm Ryan, and I make content at Rion Cultastic, and it's pretty much like deconstruction. I left a high control religion a few years ago, so I'm still just kind of waking up, figuring things out. And also, you can find me on TikTok at A Sandwich or Tax the Churches. Ta-da! I got weird. If you like weird, I got it. That's all I got.
Weird is good. All
Good.
right, who's up next?
I think it's just me.
Weird is great. I'll follow. I don't have any place you can go to, but my name is Dr. Fry. Alexiana Fry is my name. Yeah, I do all things Old Testament, feminism, trauma, and migration. And yeah, I'm a really fun time. I think the last YouTube channel I was on, the thing was drink when you hear me say the word trauma. And so we can just keep that up if we'd like. And we'll see if anybody remembers anything after this. So
I have a glass. I have a glass of wine.
I've got a few
I'm
beers
down.
in the fridge, so.
Excellent. I'm
love
here
it.
for you. I'm a little extra tired. I just went through a somatic training this weekend so that I can help people walk through and process their own trauma. So excuse me if I'm a little not present.
It's awesome.
Yes.
Right.
All right.
So I can go next. Hi, I am KaRAYgeous. That is my handle on Twitter, on TikTok, and then I don't have a YouTube channel yet, but I'm going to start one this year. I'm just trying to figure out the format and then just make the materials for it, but that will be very soon. I'm mostly on or most active on Twitter, where I share a metric ton of memes.
The memes.
All right. And we got DadPool left.
God, I don't care.
Yeah, I got a TikTok thing and a YouTube thing, but don't follow me. I don't care.
Cut my life into pieces.
There's links in my bio and then description, or maybe there isn't. I don't care either way.
Nobody's gonna want to look.
Speaking
Nobody's interested.
Speaking of links in the description, I'm gonna have to get on that. I just kind of threw the live stream link itself together last minute-ish, but I'll definitely be getting with each of you in the group chat and get links so everybody can follow you. So
linked.
today's topic is, could the Virgin Mary consent to basically having Jesus and whatever else that could possibly entail? So since I kind of figured that I would go first because my take is the simplest and
It's good.
least scholarly. So, pretty straightforward, but then I'd let the actual more scholarly people jump in and explain their points. And Rion's is like,
Oh, okay, sure. Well, when it comes to consent,
I'm just kidding. Should we define consent? Do we need to? Do we make sure we're all on the same?
I mean, there are some people that disturbingly don't quite get consent. So Yeah,
You're
it may not be the
absolutely
worst
right.
thing to go over.
I almost wonder if it's worse today.
It's
Mm.
difficult to tell, honestly.
It's difficult to tell.
I wish I could say it weren't difficult to tell, but I mean, the U.S. is not fantastic in a lot of respects.
It's not, but especially with it being so culturally Christian, and consent is not taught in Christian circles.
Right.
Like, it's because if it's taught, then you also would get people realizing how often it's violated within church. So
My state has recently introduced a bill to mandate the teaching of consent oriented lessons from K through 12. And I'm very
that's
proud
awesome.
of my state for that.
That's
I'm hoping I
awesome.
can
Yeah,
help
that's
co-sign that and fight for it.
Boost it. That's
Yeah,
definitely
it's
amazing.
can't
Oh, yeah,
wait
yeah.
to hear them like fight against that and say you're grooming our children. Like it's literally about consent, dude. But it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, like with littler kids, it's gonna be you can not give consent to hug Uncle Bobby or whatever. You know, it's not gonna start straight
Age
out.
appropriate.
You can say no to sex.
That's
It's
one thing
gonna
the bill lays out is it's age appropriate consent education.
Yeah.
Right. So like if you're little,
Yeah.
it's gonna be different than when you're 17.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. I hope it goes through.
I hope it
Yeah.
does too.
Yeah, let's
I mean, I
definitely
guess
hope that passes.
it's hard to say because I don't know exactly what it was like back in the old days. What was consent like? Because in my viewpoint, you can't consent to something when you're not of an age to have the faculties to consent to it. You shouldn't. I'm from the Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't think you should be able to consent to baptism because there are heavy restrictions placed upon you, and you don't necessarily understand the consequences of breaking like the rules. So I don't think you should be able to consent to that. So, in my opinion, you shouldn't be able to consent to having a baby. I don't know how. I don't
Well,
see it.
but it does start age appropriate because so I follow on TikTok, I follow this mom, her username is Laura Love, and she's got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I've been watching them for like 2 years. And there have been points where like the 2-year-old will like be trying to poke the 4-year-old in the face, and he'll be like, "Hey, I don't like when you poke me. That hurts me. This is my body," and I say no. And so it's like, that's not like, obviously the 1-year-old is not doing anything sexual. It's just he was doing something that the brother didn't like. And so he was setting a boundary, being like, you don't have my consent to keep poking me,
Yeah. That's so smart. Those are the kind of things I was never taught. Boundaries, consent.
Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, I was pretty much always taught, no, you don't have a choice but to give your aunts or uncles, grandmother, whoever a hug.
Right.
So I grew up with, bad teaching on consent. But
Yeah, you looked at like a brat. Like why don't you want to hug your aunts and uncles? Oh, she's being such a brat. Oh, she's so misbehaved, disrespectful, whatever. But if a child doesn't feel comfortable or doesn't want to, I don't want to hug somebody I don't want to. I don't be forced to touch somebody or let somebody touch me. Like, hell no. Why should you make a kid? No wonder we don't have boundaries as adults because we don't know what boundaries are. Boundary? What the hell's that?
Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, the topic at hand is whether Mary could consent. And, if you don't mind, I'm going to go first because I'll be done in less than like 2 minutes, honestly. The various other jokes abound with that. But, personally, I would say no, she couldn't. She was like, what, 13? versus an infinitely old deity that is all powerful and doesn't take the word no very well. So just using that all by itself, she couldn't possibly have consented. The power dynamics were way, way off, So, like, nobody, even on this earth, could actually consent to having a child with God because the power dynamic is so one-sided for everybody. So, I think I knocked that out in less than a minute. So,
that's pretty quick. Point understood.
Yeah, so I mean that's my entire take. I don't really have any points from the Bible or other scholarly works, so I'm kind of curious what everyone else has to say on this subject. Who would like to give their opinion first or point of view?
I'll go first. It's funny that we're talking about this power dynamic because I was just watching KaRAYgeous was there, the Woman King that just came out. It's on Netflix. Fantastic movie. Wow, I was not expecting it to be that good.
What was it called? I'm sorry.
The Woman King.
Oh, The Woman King. Okay, I didn't understand. Okay,
so
I haven't heard of that.
At the beginning of the movie, it's there's a child, a woman child, who is to be married off to a rich man that visits, and the father is trying to sell her to him, and she does something that he doesn't like, so the guy like smacks her across the face, and the father like defends him on doing that, and that's that whole power dynamic. You're in those times, that's how you're raised. Women are not raised to think that they have bodily autonomy or the ability to give consent or not. But this is like this girl was presented as being sort of like a countercultural character. So in Mary's age, she would fall into this line. Like, she was raised to believe that she did not have the ability to give consent or not. She just had to go with it. And so that's when you see in the Gospels as it's written, God just says to her, "Hey, Mary, you're pregnant now." And she's like, "Oh, okay, cool. Let's do that, I guess." She wasn't asked permission. She didn't have the opportunity to object. God was just like, yeah, this is happening to you now because I know your heart. So yeah, the power dynamic back then was very different than it is now because women were raised to believe that they didn't have that option to say no. Yeah, I'm done, I guess.
Have any of you seen the show Jessica Jones?
It's been a while, but yeah.
Yes.
So the first season with Kilgrave, where he basically can control a person's mind and do whatever he says. Like he didn't understand whenever she confronts him about the fact that he raped her, how it could be rape. But in that instance, like, there was no way that she could consent. And there's something about the way, especially in, authoritarian, dogmatic Christianity, that, like, for example, with like parents and their kids, parents, unless something, but parents choose to have children. They choose to bring the child into the world. And so they have the responsibility to care for that child. And if there's any burden, it's on the parent. Well, in an authoritarian mindset, the person with the power doesn't actually owe any responsibility to the people without the power. The people without the power owe something to the one with power. So to them, it doesn't matter that Mary couldn't consent. To them, she was told something. He has more power than her. And so she had to do it. And you can see that with David and Bathsheba as well from the Old Testament, that when I was growing up, I was not taught that David raped Bathsheba. I was not taught that, when Nathan uses like the comparison, when he uses the analogy with David, he compares Bathsheba to a little lamb, that she was completely young and innocent, and that there was no way that she could have consented to having sex with David because he was the literal king. And so then you see there's that exact same mindset when looking at the New Testament with Mary and Yahweh. But I was like, I would be interested, Dr. Fry, in like what you think with you studying. I mean, obviously your specialty was in the Old Testament, but you talked about like women's trauma and
A lot of consent issues in the old T.
Well, not just that.
eventful.
There's a ongoing pattern throughout the Old Testament that goes into the New Testament where the trauma of women are used as character building for men.
That is correct. Yes. And much of patriarchal interpretation in general is using women's bodies as way to continue and further their story. We are just instruments for them to be used. I am going to complicate some things.
Okay.
Love it.
And really, most of this is going to come from Rhiannon Graybill's book, Texts After Terror. This book blew my mind. And so a lot of the content and discourse around consent will be coming from that. And also really a lot of what she discusses in light of consent are critiques from both the queer and disability community. And so it's good stuff. She actually starts off her book by discussing Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale, which, that's just a standard, basically very labeled as feminist text, right? But really what it's trying to depict is a world in which high control religious persons are in bed with the government. So, not too far off. Anyway, she talks about how Offred describes her experience of the ceremony, which I'm not going to get into details about, even though, again, I feel like a conversation on consent, most of it should come with somewhat of a content warning, but content warning. And her discussion here, she actually literally says, rape doesn't cover this. Nothing is going on here that I haven't signed up for. There wasn't a lot of choice, but there was some, and this is what I chose. This is how Offred describes what happens to her in the ceremony in the book Handmaid's Tale. And so she's actually explicitly claiming she's not raped, which is an interesting thing for us to grapple with, right? And of course, you throw in aspects of trauma, and we're all going, honey, you're wrong, right? Honey, you're wrong. But Graybill writes, at the same time, I'm troubled by a reading that dismisses Offred's own analysis, or that suggests, more generally, that women are not able to judge or understand their own experiences. This is perilously close to the old patriarchal and colonialist desire to save women, or to the old misogynistic line that women are not qualified to speak for or about themselves. Yet I am also unsettled by an intellectual position that allows for rape to be something of the everyday term feeling in doing the work of affect theory. So she actually discusses that consent is probably a really terrible categorization when it comes to reading texts in the Bible. And she has some critiques that she takes from both the queer and disability communities in that. One being consent discourses assume a liberal Enlightenment subject. This assumption prevents a complex analysis of rape culture. And so an understanding of rape defined against consent and predicated upon the idea of a subject who is self-contained, self-known, and able to choose whether to give or withhold consent has unintended consequences. One such consequence is the perpetuation of ableist discourses. Another is the potential to erase rape as a category when we are talking about non-modern and non-Western contexts. Another aspect, consent discourses ignore more subtle techniques of power, such as discomfort. Consent discourses neglect intersectional analysis, especially concerning race, sexuality, and disability. Consent is actually a legitimized form of subordination. And that's a whole nother thing that I'd love to talk about when we're talking about conversations about consent in our families. Consent also risks becoming colonialist. And really, in that, consent, she adds, as a low bar. Really, we're going to land at, yeah, I guess you can do this, right? We're going to land there when we're talking about sex. Like, what about enthusiastic consent, right? What about just adding in, when we're talking about sexual violence in culture, I feel like consent actually is insufficient and inadequate in really describing some of the complexity around rape and sex in general. And what I had a difficulty with is, it seems like in Luke, and this is why I'm complicating matters, right? Because if you were to ask me point blank, do I think that she's actually able to disagree or to refuse her stuff? No. The power differential means she's not really able to disagree. But she does seem to give enthusiastic consent. And so when we're in this odd way of like comparing David and Bathsheba, where we have no reference of whether or not she consents or not really at all, but we have consent here and it seems to be enthusiastic. What's hard about this and a little triggering for my ex-evangelical mind is like, I used to use Luke 1:38 as like my tagline and my bio. Like, I am the Lord's servant. May it be done according to me, to your word. Like, may it be done. Allow it to happen. I'm very excited. As my way of being like, God, whatever your will, right? And I think that opens us up into a larger conversation of, even our lives as far as submitting to a deity. That, talking with people who are atheists could get even more exciting. So I lay all that out just to say, I'm complicating this and I don't have an answer. Yay.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that was a lot of good information.
I think that's a very good, because I think that when it just comes down to consent, like, so for example, you could have a teacher, you could have a teacher who decides to sleep with a student, and that student could be unbelievably ecstatic, think this teacher is so smart and so attractive and, can't believe that he wants to be with me.
And yet it is still an abuse of power. Yes.
It's abuse of power. And so it's
like
not
grooming.
that like, yeah. And I think that, because like, I think earlier, BMillzebub said that there was no way that she could consent. I think that, it depends on one or like two things. So one, are we going with the Virgin Mary where God got her pregnant? Or are we going with what the academic scholarly consensus is, that it was a mistranslation and it was just young woman? So she was having sex with Joseph anyway. And so basically God said, hey, like if God had come to her and was like, hey, you're pregnant and I would really like your child to be the Messiah, and asked her and said, hey, if you don't choose this, you will still be 100%, like perfect in my eyes. And I will not, like literally like just bet like, hey, I would like to give you this opportunity, but if you don't do it, like you will still like, you won't be seen as less than, there won't be anything that. that, so that way it's, like that way she had a choice in it and, would know either way. But, it's just something that like, it's still an unfair, like uneven power dynamic.
I will add to
Right.
that too. Now that I'm again actually looking at the text, when the angel like sort of talks to her and she's like, "Oh my god, there's a freaking angel here. That's pretty cool."
Like the folk.
And she's like, the angel's all like, "Greetings, favored women." She's like, "Hell yeah, I'm favored."
Blessed and highly favored.
Hi,
Girly. She's a blessed girly.
She is. She's Valley girl. But as soon as she's called, "Greetings, favored woman, the Lord is with you," she was deeply troubled by the statement and basically asks, what are you insinuating? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not given a choice. She is told, this is what happens to you. This is what's going to happen. And so even when we're talking about consent discourses, there's not really even a choice that's happening in this place. So if consent's the bar low, we're not even meeting that. There's no choice happening.
There wasn't even an opportunity to give a retort.
No.
If even possible.
Granted. Keep going.
No. Please, you go.
It's really okay. Granted,
well, I was just curious if I'm muting. You go.
No.
Ryan, come back.
I was going to make a joke about like how if somebody told me like, "Oh yeah, the baby you're about to have is going to be an Olympian," I'd be like, "Be it unto me according to your word." Yes, I agree. I consent to that. Yes.
Right. Make them smart, Olympian.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Okay.
Yes, Lord.
Okay.
Anyway, but that was just my side joke. Now you can actually talk.
Oh, they're a Messiah. Oh, okay. Well,
we're good. Different. We're good. Yeah, good.
That's different. Oh, saving the world.
Oh, we're good. Yeah, no big deal. Fine.
Love it. I love that for me.
You're saying I'm like gonna be the best mom,
right?
I'm
like
famous
forever
mom.
And ever?
I'm famous mom now.
Written in the history books. Okay. I have a question. I don't know if DadPool, you might be better apt at answering this, but because you pointed out the scripture, Dr. Fry, I went to Luke and looked at it where it says, "Greeting you who are highly favored, the Lord is with you." Is there anything like in the Greek there? Like, is she already pregnant? Is that the Lord is with you? Like, is that a possibility? Like, bitch, it's in the oven. It's baking. The fetus is a greetus.
I don't really think so, and here's why.
Okay. No,
the word in verse in Luke 1:29 is in most translations you'll read, this is after Michael tells her that she's going to become pregnant. And she says, again, in most translations, it'll say she was confused or perplexed. But those aren't the only words that word can translate to. It's more accurate, I think, to say that she was disturbed. It's the same word. The same word can have multiple meanings in the Greek. Right. So in most English translations, it'll say she was confused or perplexed, but you can also say she was disturbed. What? I'm pregnant? That's not good.
Right.
You've just ruined my entire life. Really? Why?
Like, I'm not married yet. Why? What?
Right.
You trying to get me
killed? You think at that moment she was already...
And there is a... I gotta remember the details now. In the book of Second Enoch, okay, written in the late second, maybe early first century BCE. That Dr. Fry, know where I'm going with this. Enoch is born. Is it Enoch or Melchizedek? Again, I'm trying to dust off. Anyway, it's the priests. the
One
priest
of
is
the
Near.
men.
I remember his name.
What?
Because that's easy
Some
to remember.
old man.
The priest
In history.
Near was off doing priestly duties, and his wife becomes pregnant while he's gone, and she's like old as shit. So he comes home, and he's like, "You're pregnant," and she was like, "I haven't been with a guy." This is, I wish I could pull the reference now, but it's kind of hard to find. She was like, "I haven't been with a guy. I was just became pregnant. I don't know what happened," and he like kicked her out.
I
Of the
sat on the
temple, or his
toilet.
house.
It was
And
in a hot tub. It was a
she like
jacuzzi.
begged him. She begged him to stay. She was like, "No, I haven't been with another man. You've been off doing your duties. I've been here taking care of the home. I haven't been." And then she dies. Right. Well, then I think it's Archangel Gabriel. Like Near is like mourning the death of his wife, even though he like kicked her out of his home. And then Archangel Gabriel comes out, similar to Matthew and Luke. And he's like, "Don't mourn. The baby is still going to be born. Even though she's dead, the baby is still going to be born. And he's going to be essentially a messianic figure." So what we can kind of deduce from that is God impregnated this old woman. And her life was destroyed because of it. Her husband didn't believe her. She was kicked out of her home, sent out to fend for herself in the wilderness, and then she died.
How often does that
And then the angel was like,
Kinda often.
"Yeah, don't worry about it. It's cool.
Right?
It's cool." Her only purpose was to like kind of incubate this fetus for a while. So he's going to be born now. Don't mourn over her. You're good. Just raise this child. So like when
She
y'all were
served her
saying
purpose.
earlier that the role of the woman was to feed the narrative surrounding the character development of the man,
Yes.
that's what popped into my mind immediately.
Yeah.
Is like this woman's body, her life, and everything was not even considered in this narrative.
Mm-mm.
Right.
Again, written 2200 years ago.
Mhm.
And it was
I
all
just
about the
learned
man.
that.
The purpose was
Like last week.
the character development of the husband, or and it's
Yep.
something similar that's happening in Mary. Like, don't care
Yeah.
what happens to you. Joseph, it's your job. Now you have to
So, like,
protect her.
It's like,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
like what it's basically saying with those two stories together is that, you know, it talks about how Joseph was going to secretly divorce her because, you know, basically she would have been stoned to death because of the laws, like for being an adulterer, she would have been stoned to death. But if he quietly, privately divorced her, then she wouldn't. And so this is supposed to show that he was a good man, that he, you know, didn't want Mary to get stoned to death, but he was just going to, you know, go in private. And then God comes to him and says, or in a dream has the angel come to him and say, "No, like I did this, you didn't do this, like it's all good, you know, stay and like help raise the baby." But it also implies that if Joseph had been a man of his time and decided to have her stoned to death, that God would have just gotten another girl pregnant.
You're
Yeah.
probably right.
Yeah.
Like, oh damn.
Would have been like, well, that guy was
Go to the next one on the list.
I gotta ruin someone else's life. Gosh, y'all make it so hard for me.
Again, I'm going to make it a little bit more complicated because we've got a
Please
gosh.
do.
Love it.
I feel like
love
this is on.
Why
me
you have
today.
to go and make things so complicated?
Yeah, we've got a future middle indicative here.
Yeah.
We've got a future middle indicative here when it comes to will conceive, the verb. And
Okay.
so here's then the next debate, right? What is conception? Does that mean she will give birth, right? Because we're also talking about Judaism. And so I don't think they believe, and I could be wrong, I don't think they believe Christians, you know, believe that conception happens as soon as the little spermies gets into the little egg.
Right.
But I think Judaism is different when it comes to their thoughts of conception. And so it
I
could
believe so.
be that she is already pregnant, but I don't know the answer to what they thought was conception.
Well, because in Judaism, a life isn't a life until it takes its first breath.
This is correct.
Right.
Like, so, you know, like that's
Right.
That's just
And
based off
so-
of Genesis 2.
well, but not
Oh, I
just
have
that.
thoughts.
It's also because of in February, but in Exodus, where there's the passage that talks about how if two men are fighting and a woman is pregnant and she gets harmed,
Mhm.
and she dies, that man has to die.
Mhm.
But if she just miscarries, if she just loses the fetus, then he has to pay a fine.
Mhm.
And so they take that as to mean, because it says an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a life for a life, that if a fetus was considered a life, that
Mhm.
that man would have to die either way.
Right.
Let's just really quick throwing this out here. Let's just, Dobbs
do.
is an obstruction of religious freedom. Anyway,
Right.
Yeah, overturning. Yeah, that was.
yes. On another note, that Captain
feel like I
DadPool,
missed
you sort of hinted at, and we're going to talk about more parallel stories. Mary's parallel little song here also parallels Hannah's song in 1 Samuel.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so let's make it even more freaking complicated, right? Like this
Let's
is
do it. I'm here for it.
Now we got to scoot all the way back to 1 Samuel, the beginning of 1 Samuel, when Hannah is like trying to have a kid. I'm getting made fun of. This is embarrassing. And then God helps her have a child. And then there's somewhat of a question here. Is that Zechariah's child? Wait, is it Zechariah? No, it's not Zechariah. I'm confusing so many names now. How many names can I keep in my brain?
I think Zechariah was John's father.
Who's
Are you
the
talking
father?
about-
It's Eli. No, it's not.
No, I don't even know if is her husband named.
Elkanah is the dad's name.
Oh, okay.
Is Elkanah the dad?
Mm.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, but in that same sense,
What-
was Abraham the father of, Sarah's baby?
Right.
Which one?
Mm.
Which one?
Well, he actually did bang Hagar, so
yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and that she could totally consent to that
no.
transaction.
I was thinking of that story too. Like, there's no
Right?
Oh,
consent
okay.
there.
In 1 Samuel, it's explicit that Elkanah was intimate with his wife Hannah, and then the Lord remembered her.
Okay.
So Elkanah is daddy.
And then the Lord remembered her.
Yes. And then, yeah.
He forgot.
Happens.
The
I want to say
omniscient-
too, yeah, Hannah also has a Hagar in her life named Penina, who Penina also is like,
Yeah.
you suck.
Making
You
fun of
can't have
her and
kids.
shit. And then when she's at the
has
temple,
a
like
pi- she
weeping
has a
and stuff, the
panini in her?
dude's
I
like,
want a
"Are you
panini
drunk,
in me."
bitch?" She's like, "No, I'm freaking brokenhearted, bro. Like, chill.
Yes. Yep.
Like, can I not be emotional?
No.
No, not allowed."
There's also another factor that kind of muddies the water a little bit more.
Yay.
And that's if you're a prophet,
Mhm.
it's believed that you were preordained to be a prophet before your birth. That's why Jeremiah in 29:11 it says before
Samuel.
I know the plans I have for you. And then it was the other verse. Before you
David?
formed me in the
I formed
womb,
you. Yeah, I knew you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Apologists will use that, and like right-wing Christians will use that to say, but the thing is, that's only for prophets. Prophets were preordained at the beginning of time for these missions. That was the belief in ancient
technically,
Judaism.
the Messiah is also a prophet.
Well,
Right.
and
Yes.
And the other thing is that they're not like, so when I've talked to rabbis about it, like, yes, it is about specific prophets, but it's about Israel as a whole. It's about like Israel being selected, that the people of Israel have been
in certain verses,
ordained. like, so like to them that's not
absolutely.
about like life beginning at conception or whatever. For them it's about
Yeah.
their people as like a people that
Right.
Yahweh is
They
intentional
understand
about.
that correctly.
Right.
What were you saying? I interrupted.
That was the info. Yeah, they understand that correct. Rabbis understand that correctly, but Christian nationalists will take it and use it to be like, yeah, abortion should be made illegal because God made everyone sentient beings prior to them even being conceived, when that's not what's going on there. But they don't.
I mean, that's what when I used to be devoutly pro-life.
Oh yeah, these verses were
those were like I didn't even
jam.
I didn't even think about the 10 Commandments being like, do not kill. It was those two verses where I was like, but God clearly, and I was so uneducated.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
know better, do better. Here we are.
yeah, exactly. That's what these discussions are for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, where
Ryan,
did we land?
Yeah, Ryan, you had some stuff that you wanted to talk about in regards
please.
to topic,
I'd love to hear from you.
Oh God. Oh, I just me.
I haven't heard much from
Maybe you
you
don't know
tonight.
me. I'm just a weirdo who likes talking about Bible stuff, but I've been really on this kick of trying to determine not determine. I feel Jesus was a Nephilim. He fits the description, but I'm just trying to like get all my evidence together.
That's
to
a
be
new
able
freaking take.
put
Okay.
that.
What?
Well,
how have I not heard this before?
In my opinion, this is all just my opinion, but by definition, if we look at what Genesis says, because learning what the sons of God are, B'nai Elohim, and then I was trying, but see, I don't know the language. I was trying to dig into what Jesus supposedly meant when he's referencing Psalms, and Psalms specifically says, and it depends, is he reading the Septuagint? Is he reading Hebrew scriptures? Right? Because there's going to be a difference. Possibly going to be a difference. But if he's reading his scriptures in his language, or whatever, Hebrew, whatever, it would be B'nai Elohim. But then if he's reading the Septuagint, then it would just be angels. So I'm trying to figure out, what is this Jesus character reading?
Well, Jesus couldn't read, so this would just be
who is doing the reading in this scenario?
Right, and like who is teaching him what
the
language?
author of Genesis, you're saying?
So you don't think that Jesus can read?
No, I definitely don't.
Interesting.
Because if he could read, he could have written, and we don't have any writings from him.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, that's why
I could talk about this for a while.
Weird. But if you go by what the scripture says, it says that, like, that's the difficulty in trying to, trying to figure out where to land. Because how much of the scriptures are you supposed to trust? Because I don't trust any of it, but I'm just trying to pull out what I can. And I'm not a scholar, so I'm just a rando on the internet.
So in was it Matthew where Jesus reads from the Torah,
the Isaiah scroll? Is that the one
in the temple?
Does it actually say he reads it?
Yeah, it says he picks it up and he reads.
That's why I'm like,
it actually says,
what do we believe?
What book he reads from? It's either Daniel or Isaiah.
I will say, you don't have to know how to write in order to read, because I read way before I could write.
Well, we also have,
yes, that's true.
Yeah. Anyway, the point I'm saying is, I never
thought of that, but that's interesting.
Sticky.
See, that's stuff I don't think about until like people say it. I'm like, that's interesting. I never thought about that. Sorry.
My point is, you don't just go into the temple and pick up a scroll and start reading it. That's not how that works.
Doesn't make
You have to be
doesn't
like
make sense.
the Pharisee that's in charge of that specific temple to read from it. Like a random Jesus who has not gone through the regular system In military terms, it'd be like if a private went into the first sergeant's office and pulled files out of his desk and started reading them. That's just not
Right.
something that happens.
Right. Well, nobody goes
So
into
when you read that
the
account,
temple,
it's like,
right,
yeah,
really,
that
that area
doesn't make sense.
Mm. But
Yeah,
I
I
just
don't think that's a
wonder.
historically accurate account.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't believe any of
What?
this shit's
There's things in the
accurate.
Gospels that are historically inaccurate.
It's a fun idea to toy with. Absolutely.
Right.
And that's
yeah,
why
that's,
we have
and
these.
that's what I'm trying, because that's like what that's all Christianity is, right? When you start to parse these books out, there's nothing. There's these individual stories, but then if you start to weave it together, we can make this claim. So I'm just doing what the Christians do. I'm just doing the anti-apologetics and trying to figure out, okay, well, hey, let's pretend Jesus could read, and let's pretend Jesus was reading.
I mean, I like that
stuff in his language.
Why not have that imagination and explore those options? I don't see why
I really like Christy Burke talking, who's done like a whole series, or we'll talk about how she thinks that Paul was a false prophet because there were a lot of commands that Jesus gave. And he warned that there was someone who was going to speak in his name, but completely contradict the things that he said and try to start his own following. And literally then Paul, 20 years later, has this roadside conversion and is like, oh, no, you don't need to pick up your own cross. We have all been crucified with Christ. And he would say things that completely contradicted, and he opened up the faith in a way that Jesus never intended to.
Yep.
He
saw his access and ran with it. I mean, it's smart, but he's a fucker.
Sure. Back to the point. Was there anything else? Yeah, Dr. Fry, do you have any more? I'm loving your insights.
Yeah, actually, I have a little bit more. And it's going to get a little bit more messy. And it's coming from more of Graybill's work and less Bible, but Bible. So is anybody familiar with Octavia Butler's work? I'm talking her sci-fi series. Okay. I'm telling you right now, if you need some fun science fiction, Octavia Butler is your girl. She famously is known for having written The Parable of the Sower and The Parable of the Talents, those two books, which are...
I've heard those, yeah.
Post-apocalyptic.
Oh, Parable of the Sower. Everybody's been raging about that book, raving about that
Jesus
book, I should
wrote
say,
those.
recently.
Fake news.
Obviously. She actually writes a series called Xenogenesis. It's a trilogy. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it made me incredibly uncomfortable. So I'll give you some of the premise. And part of the premise is the world is what it is. And so it continued to escalate into killing and violence and war until really we just started nuking each other, and most of the world was gone. And so these aliens, this group of aliens, rescued a few humans they thought they could salvage, that were good stock, and brought them up in order so that they could mix and mingle with the humans and then repopulate the earth. Because the earth is a good planet, you just had bad people on it, essentially, is part of it. And we gotta beat out the violence that is so inherent in your race, right? So it's complicated because then you have Lilith, who is the first one that wakes up. Yes, her name is Lilith. Yes, it's prophetic. Yes, it's wonderful. And she essentially finds out all of this. Are the aliens nice and accommodating and good? Does she have a choice? Not really. And what comes after is a trilogy that I will not spoil. But it's fantastic that when Butler is discussing those edges of consent and those blurry parts that the creature, which actually the creature is more of a they, them than anything, they are engaging in intercourse and it's pleasurable for her. And she doesn't know what to do with that information of like, I have consented to this experience, right? Granted, can I really consent? Because the future of our species relies on me. And if I don't consent, then what are they going to do with me? Right? Do I survive? I don't know the answer to this. There's no knowns. But she thoroughly enjoys her experience. And so there's this interesting juxtaposition when it comes to those novels that brings us to what Graybill calls the edges of consent, in that some pieces of consent are yucky and messy, and there's not really a good binary framework that we should be using here, right? Even when I was joking about, okay, so this happens, she's like, what the actual hell did you just do to me? What the actual hell is about to happen? And then he's like, oh yeah, don't worry, it's the Messiah. So and she's like, oh, then it's cool beans. It's freaking cool beans. Like, we're good here. I'm like, actually, there's another fascinating actual biblical article on this. Susan Ackerman writes on gods, goddesses, and the women who worship them. That's the book.
Yeah, I think
Hashtag
I have that
cool.
one.
I've heard of that.
It's really, really great. Really enjoyed her work, and my review on it will come out in a journal sometime this year.
Oh
But
my God, please send me the link when you do.
Awesome.
I will.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's really delicious.
I love it.
But she actually talks about how, when we talk about how actually Judaism is very polytheistic, especially in its early days, and how there was probably a queen mother at all times who actually worshipped Asherah in tandem with Yahweh. And how Mary, in a lot of ways, embodies this queen mother figure, which is very enshrined in the Marian cults that we have in Catholicism now. But it's just very interesting when we talk about KaRAYgeous, how you even discussed those parallels between Bathsheba and Mary, in that, did she choose this? No. But was it pretty badass? Yes. And so it's this complicated mix of recognizing that what happened sucked. This should not have happened, but it did. What do we do with that? What do we do in the aftermath? And I think with Mary and even with Bathsheba, we have stories of women who were able to integrate their experiences of trauma, which I think is fantastic for us to have models to see. I think lack of recognition of the traumatic moments, especially as you talked about, KaRAYgeous. I don't know why I say it like that. Don't judge me.
It's better.
I love it.
Lack of discussion around these things, which I think we're doing beautifully now, about did Mary consent? Probably not. Can she? No. Maybe wasn't enthusiastic. Not at first. She was freaking troubled. And we don't even know what the span of that word means. Excuse me. But we've set too low a bar with consent. And I think it's time to talk about all of the messiness. Again, I don't want to be the person who's ex-evangelical who is like, God bless what happened because she made beauty from ashes. That's messed
Too late.
up.
Silver lining.
I think too late. That's messed up.
Also,
to recognize that things can happen. They don't need to be defined by their traumatic experience. There's more to these people.
I also, this may be a controversial statement. I don't think that all violations of consent are rape.
No.
Because, for example, let's say you've got a married couple and the husband has been having an affair for the past 6 months. And if the wife knew that, she wouldn't have been sleeping with him that whole time because her trust would have been broken. But she didn't know. He didn't tell her. And I don't think that means that he was raping her for those 6 months. I think that he violated her consent, her informed consent. And I think
that. That's a great way to put it.
Informed consent.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up informed consent because purple rhymes with orange also has brought it up. So, kind of out of curiosity, we've spoken about the various different forms of consent. Now, what does everybody think about Mary's state of informed consent?
Yeah, does she find out that he dies early? I forget when she finds out that he's gonna die.
Oh
When
gosh,
Jesus is gonna die?
right? Oof.
Yeah.
So
That-
Yeah,
I
like
don't
how
think
much
she
does she
realizes
know,
she's
right?
gonna die.
I thought she did for some
Yeah, I
odd
don't think she
reason.
realized it until like
I
the
think
very
I
end,
only think that
especially
she
Mark.
did because of the damn song. Mary, did you know?
Oh my god.
That's
I
the
can't
only reason
pull
I'm
that
like,
song.
did she actually
Bye,
know?
Bye bye.
Well, and it's like
Oh,
because
bye.
I don't think she knew at all. I don't think because
Damn
he
right.
had, because
Sorry.
the people who studied the
It's Jesus, bitch.
Torah,
I'm sorry.
Hilarious way.
Serious time.
so
Could you imagine Jesus popping out of the vagina? I'm a
Oh, baby.
Messiah, bitch.
Surprise, motherfucker. Yes,
Surprise.
I can.
oh my god. But
Ahem.
so I think that
I'm
if you're
here. What are your
talking
other
about-
two wishes? Sorry, go ahead.
I think
You ripped it
we're-
too hard,
bad.
Mary.
So I think once again that comes to because like the prophecies in Isaiah are about Israel. They're about the Jewish people as a whole, but Christians see that is about Jesus. So even if she could have even if that was something that they were waiting for a Messiah that was going to be beaten and broken and ultimately restore everything. She wouldn't have known that because women weren't allowed in those spaces and weren't educated in that way.
Interesting. But
So
even
I don't think she
the
knew at all.
Messiah didn't even. I thought the difference of Jesus is he was the Messiah that was going to die. The Messiah didn't necessarily mean they were destined for death, right? But Jesus was different. He's like, the secret is.
Yeah, most people once he
Going down.
died was like, that wasn't a Messiah.
Mhm. Shouldn't have died.
I don't think she was told that he was gonna die. So is there real informed consent?
No,
I don't know.
No.
All
Would you
she gets
consent to
is-
having a baby that's destined for death? Maybe that's horrible.
All
Yeah,
she
I don't
gets
think
No,
is
I don't even think they say it's gonna die.
no, they don't. Because we only have two birth accounts. You have Luke and Matthew. In Matthew, Joseph is the one that's finding out from the angel that the kid's going to die for this. Not die. The kid is going to save all his people from their sins. And in Luke, it's you're going to have the Son of God.
Is Luke the one where he was going to divorce her when he found out, and then he was like, "Oh, it's like
Matthew.
a cool baby." Okay.
Yeah, Matthew. Oh,
it's a cool baby. Oh, that's different.
have you seen that meme where it's Joseph and Jesus, and he's wearing a shirt that says, "I'm not the dad. I'm the dad who stepped up."
No,
Like a stepdad
no,
shirt.
but I wish I could have that meme on a
It's
shirt.
really good. Yeah,
That's actually really
it's really
funny.
good.
The dad who stepped
Captain
I'm the dad
Dadpool
who
should
stepped
wear
up.
that.
burn, Yahweh, burn. That's really
Yeah.
funny.
But yeah, no, I don't think she had informed consent. I don't.
I'm gonna say nay.
Yeah.
Nay on
I
It's-
mean,
it's such a
ultimately,
weird,
I was the one adding all of these like weird pieces into it because that's what I do.
No, I think it's
but
important.
ultimately, my answer is no.
Yeah, but I think it's important that you do that, especially for people like me, because this is a lot of this is nuanced conversation that I've never had before. So it helps me learn. I've learned some stuff, so that's good. Thank you.
It's a difficult topic to kind of tackle because consent was not a thing back then. As a woman, you were property.
Yep.
You were born as property. You were raised as property. That's all you ever were. You were never
Transferred
told
as property
that you could
from one person.
you could be sold or traded at any point. Your entire life's purpose was to find a husband and bear his children and take care of your farm. Like that was your purpose. the concept of being able to say no to those things was not there at the time. And in fact, there was a lot of like competition between women, even in like the slave trade days. Like, oh, how much did they have to pay for you? Oh, they had to pay this much for me, which is higher than what they had to pay for you because I have a background in agriculture, so I fetched a higher price than you. So it was even like their slave status was even competitive to a point.
Yeah, like classism in the slave class.
But it was that way because that was all they had. That's all they could do to find some sort of dignity in their existence.
Well, and you also have like, I mean, because with Dr. Fry talking about Hannah, which like I feel like there's a lot of parallels between Hannah and Rachel. That that you know with Rachel,
it's just like the same. They just keep recycling the women's stories. It's the men that
Ruth
get
and
cool
Boaz
stories.
and Esther and the king.
Yeah, the men get the cool stories.
Yeah, but it's like, so you know, Leah was not, you know, loved the way that Rachel was, and so the one thing that she had was that she made a lot of kids, and she would give, you know, and then with Hannah, like her, I mean, I don't know, I haven't read that passage in a while, but I believe her husband tells her like, hey, I love you, like it's okay that we can't have kids because I have wives that have given me kids, but the other wives were teasing her mercilessly about it, the fact that she hadn't had a kid, because that was
so there's competition there.
Yeah, that was
in the family household.
I mean, to be kind of, you were either a womb or a vagina, and that was it. Like that's what you were back then.
Yeah.
I heard people call them meat pockets.
Oh God,
wizard sleeves.
I was just introduced to that term this week.
Oh my gosh.
Really?
Oh, fun. I do have a little thing I'd like to read. It's actually from a woman named Sarah Ahmed, and she is a wonderful writer. She writes on the feminist killjoy. She's incredible. All of her work is mwah. But she writes about her critical assessment of consent in a book called Willful Subjects. And this is her quote. "We certainly need to hear the violence that converts no into yes. My additional suggestion is modest. We also need to hear the cases in which yes involves force but is not experienced as force. When, for instance, a woman says yes to something as the consequences of saying no would be too much. If being willing does not mean the absence of force, then we need to account for the social and political situations in which yes and no are given." And I think this applies to Mary. That blurriness of she started out as troubled and ended up with a yes. But what happens in that in-between space? She doesn't allow that to be the totality of her story, and for which I love her. Trauma doesn't have to be totalizing. It never is. Right. But violence is a part of her story.
Yeah. You can have trauma but not be traumatized. I mean, it's
violence can be a part of your story, but it is not.
Yeah, you can be traumatized and still have an after.
But you don't have to be perpetually living in that.
And in that way, Dr. Fry, if you have not seen The Woman King, you need to watch it.
Apparently I do. Apparently.
It's pretty violent, but yes.
All I can think of when I hear that, though, is the meme that's going around of the recent award show. Viola Davis, my woman king.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Wait, what happened?
The one
Angela Davis, she did that thing.
Oh, yeah. Angela Davis, she did that thing.
Yeah.
It was just a performance that people were making fun of her, but I feel like she did her. Yeah, it was cute.
So hard.
And it was,
Now it's a meme.
Is it like the guys that are making fun of Rihanna for doing
Who's making fun of Rihanna?
Pregnant.
Oh, I love
a bunch of white guys, typical.
A little bop, popping a little booty.
I know.
Shit just got real.
You can make fun of Ariana DeBose, but you cannot
I love Ariana DeBose.
I will fight. Okay, there's the edge of my consent in
For
that.
my Riri.
So
I'm not saying that we should diss Rihanna. to
We
be
have
very clear.
crossed
I'm just
the
saying I
line.
also love
I am
Ariana
sorry
DeBose.
I brought this up, although I'm not.
yeah, me too.
I'd say
Me
that.
too.
Oh shoot, that's too funny.
Yeah, like she was pregnant during the halftime show, and so guys are pointing that out, like, oh, all she could do, she couldn't like move or dance very much because she was pregnant. So why have her on at all?
Well, but also
I'm like,
that's what
because she can
Rihanna shows
sing
her like.
really fucking good.
Right.
Well, but also it just says that because obviously they're straight men, they haven't seen a Rihanna show because she has never been one of those "I'm gonna dance everywhere" kind of.
Yeah,
Performance.
she's not
Yeah,
like she's not
yeah,
like a
she-
Beyonce type.
She doesn't need to. Okay.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. She don't gotta
She
do all that.
knows her enoughness. Okay. So
She has standards. And plus, like, why don't you like I don't know, however many stories
you go ahead and do
above-
her dances. You go
Yeah,
ahead and do it.
and be on a
Please.
You,
platform.
why don't you show me?
While
Pregnant.
pregnant. Okay, that
Pregnant.
was dangerous. That was dangerous, like no matter how you slice it, because something could have failed.
I'm
But
sorry. When I am
you
able to
risked it for the
see a
biscuit.
male do the things that she did with her body while pregnant, I don't care. Nope, I can't do those things.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Able-bodied, never will be pregnant. We're good. Sorry.
Yeah,
I will never be pregnant.
Not sorry.
I understand.
I'm able-bodied-ish, and if I tried to do 1/10 of 1/2 of what Rihanna did at the halftime show, I would pull several
Right.
things.
Actually, big respect to you because you actually said her name right and we've been saying it wrong. So well done.
And you know what? Add on to that the fact that how many women died through childbirth?
Oh
So-
my God.
Like, I mean, God could have laid it out for okay, like, or the angel, whatever, could have been like, look, we guarantee that like the childbirth is going to be painless.
Here's the contract. Okay.
Right. Like, you're not going to bleed out. Okay. And they didn't even provide like a how, like, not, she got F off. So supposedly God's like, hey, I'm going to bless you with this baby. And then she's in a barn.
Yep. And then
the-
immediately like has to flee. By the way, your
Tell me
life
how
is
that's
in danger.
divine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Enjoy fleeing to
Seems kind
Egypt.
of Rodeo-like.
Right.
Yeah.
You've got this precious cargo, and now we're going to give you all these pitfalls.
I'm just gonna shake him up.
Here comes Herod.
Here comes Herod.
Three
Brilliant.
wise men, my ass.
It would be like if God said to a guy, "Hey, I put a questionable pomegranate in your stomach. You might die from that. You might not. But the pomegranate's in your stomach and it's special. It might
It's a
kill
golden
you,
pomegranate.
but you could get food poisoning from it. We don't know where it came from.
Or
But it's yours now.
Spot
It's in
on.
there. There's nothing you can do about it now. So
Purple rhymes
Have
with
you
orange.
seen
Let me
Doc-
run this by my lawyers and get back to you next week. Yes.
God.
I
Um,
love it.
Dr. Fry, have you seen The House of the Dragon?
No, I can't handle a lot of
That's-
things.
That's totally fine. It's just in the very first episode,
Either.
there's a woman who gives birth and she's having a difficult birth. And when we talk about violating informed consent, so this woman is having difficulty.
Not many women are being told that they could rip up to their asshole. So
Well, it doesn't
Yes.
even do that because like
that is the thing.
her husband is the king, and they like pull him aside and they're like, hey, like she's not going to make it. The baby, like right now as it is not going to make it. But there is a new procedure that we could do that would guarantee the baby. Like we could try to save the baby because your wife's not going to make it either way. And he basically decides to have a forced C-section on her against her will. And it's just like, like that absolutely would have been, like, why would they inform the woman? Because she's going to die anyway. It's like,
so yucky.
yep.
Yucky. Oh, yucky's a good word for it. Very yucky.
Mhm. That's all I got.
All the yuck.
Mhm.
All right, so we've been running a little over an hour now. Want to say thank you to all of you again for coming on the show. If you would like, I like to finish the same way I start, with my guests shilling themselves. So if you'd like to,
I love a good shill. I'm a shilla, baby.
the more shameless, the better. Honestly,
Right.
Oh, God.
Got to peddle the bullshit sometimes, you know.
it's not just the conversation; it's also mutual growth. So
True. Yeah. I feel like I always meet new friends now that I do this little circuit. So that's great.
Alrighty. So, Ryan, do you want to start again?
Sure. Hi, I'm Ryan. And if you haven't been able to tell thus far, I'm a bit of a quirk, but I like to put in the work.
Love it.
Wowsies. Oh God, help me. Yeah. I just like to do a little bit of biblical education because I feel like I'm bringing a lot of JWs with me. And I like that. I like that we can kind of do our little Pied Piper walk out of the hellhole that was high control religion.
Yes.
And I really do find the Bible so much more interesting now
Yeah.
than I ever have.
Right.
Like I could talk about it for hours. Yeah.
Yep.
Where before, like it would just be the same Matthew, Mark, Luke, John said A, B, and C, and Jesus did. It's just so annoying. And now I get to talk about the things and okay, well, what was the context and what was that word and what was the meaning? Like all the things I never would have thought about, like had no clue about until now. And it just opens up this whole new world. So yeah, follow me for that.
Because before you had people telling you how to interpret it, and now we get to interpret
Absolutely. Yes. And that's why I'm like, why do I need Paul to interpret like, I don't need any of these guys to interpret the Tanakh for me. I can do that myself. Thanks. And especially considering that most of the doctrine that's out there was crafted in the frickin' 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, blah, 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 blah century. I could do that myself, you misogynistic pigs. Sorry. No,
I love
sorry.
it. Oh, well, goodbye. I'm Dr. Fry.
Goodbye, Dr.
that rhymed.
She's a poet, and you didn't know it.
And didn't know it.
I love it. She has a book that will be coming out.
I hope so. We'll see if it passes peer review.
Well,
Oh, really? Oh, that is amazing. Oh, I want to read it.
Good.
Awesome.
I need people to buy it.
Yes. I love supporting.
I do have a TikTok.
yes, she is new on TikTok.
Yes, I'm a newbie on TikTok.
What's your tickety talk?
Huh? I don't know. I'm a newbie on TikTok. I post here and there. Sometimes it's ridiculous. Sometimes it's great.
Fry or?
It is.
I really want you to be able to like go more in depth of being like, let's talk about this through the feminist lens, and let's talk about this.
Yes, please. Like some of the stuff you were like just.
It is
rattling
my
off
name.
of like.
Alexiana D. Fry.
Okay. You still need to follow me back.
Oh, do I not follow you? I'm so bad at my phone.
So good.
I found you.
It's okay. It takes some learning and getting used to.
It really
Don't
does.
feel
That's
pressured.
good. That's good.
I also just like giving
TikTok is
people.
a whole different animal.
It really is.
It really does. It really is.
And part of me is like, is this even worth my time? It takes so much effort and work, y'all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When I don't have the energy, I just don't do it. I'm like, I'll do it when I want
Same.
to. When I have something.
Same.
It's usually something that has made me pissed off enough that I'm like, I gotta
I make a
talk
video
about
like
this.
once a week
Right.
now.
Oh, I do follow you on here.
You do? Okay, cool.
Yes, I got you.
I'm trying to focus more on the YouTubes because I feel like TikTok, it hates everybody. Like I know it hates me. Like I know I get shadow banned all the time.
Same.
But I've seen other creators who have views as like what my views are, and they've got like way more followers than me. So I know it's not just me, but it is me. So I'm trying to move to a better platform that doesn't seem to, I don't know, hide content. I feel like TikTok hides your content. So
Yeah. Well, TikTok is basically just trying to get as much free advertising as possible. So
yeah,
they will pump out ones where they're like, someone's talking about like it's this product, it has worked wonders for me, and like,
Right.
like so they'll be like, oh, like we don't have to pay for this advertisement. Like, let's push this.
exactly. Well,
All right. So rather than plug myself, I think I want to go on a tiny little rant.
Yes.
I'm not exactly sure how this is going to come out.
Oh.
But it's just a thought, some thoughts I've been having during the course of the stream. Regarding consent.
Yes. Let's go.
In the ancient world, consent was not a thing.
No, it was not.
Women were property. Children were property. And when I hear a lot of the rhetoric coming from mostly straight white guys from almost entirely one political party, it seems very much like they want to go back to that. They're banning books from children. They're banning
when
the
they
ability
say we want to make blank
they're,
great again, believe them when they say that.
They're banning the ability to get contraception. They're banning the Plan B pill. They want to return to this time where
not just
women didn't get to say no because
one of the sorry
go ahead.
Oh no, just like one of the
TikToks
I made recently was there was this clip of Jordan Peterson that broke where he was basically, and I had to make something about it because it made me so
dog shit.
Yeah,
he's disgusting. He's absolutely.
There was this video clip of this woman he was talking to, and he was like, you said that one of the benefits of feminism is that it changed rape from a property crime to a personal crime, like a crime against the person. And he's like, and I can empathize with that. But, and then he started talking about how ultimately rape doesn't matter unless it impacts men. So unless it financially impacts men, and that emotionally, that like, rape is never going to stop, which like it didn't stop back when it was a property crime. So like we don't need our trauma to be validated by men for it to actually be valid because women are human beings.
Right. Just teach people
and they're
better.
getting increasingly more and more bold in saying the quiet part out loud. Like they're
oh god, yes.
They want to return to a period where they don't have to earn consent. They want women to give it to them by default, so they don't have to work for it, or they don't have to, be a decent human being. Be someone that a woman is sexually attractive to. They can't do that. So,
yeah, the most recent TikTok that I made was this Republican politician in Alaska who markets himself as traditional family values, right? And this video clip is him saying that if a child is abused and killed, that is a financial net positive for the state of Alaska because they don't.
Oh God, yes, I heard that.
Yeah, like, and it's just like, how do you? What? Like,
would have been a good. And these are the people who are making laws. Like what?
Because they want to make it to where
in charge.
Women and
they're
children
not interested in equality. They're not interested in free speech. They're only interested in being able to rule with an iron fist. That's all they want.
Yeah.
And
because authoritarianism, they want power. They worship power. They don't worship their God because they think that God is good. They worship him because he's powerful.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
They can use him as a Trojan horse to bring in their own bigoted ideology. And they feel justified in doing that. Well, God, my God thinks this. So then you have to abide by it, Anyway. All right. Yeah, I'm done.
It's exhausting.
And I'm going to plug him for him. He has a, gosh, I can't.
I'm getting a phone call.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I have a show in 30 minutes.
he has a show in like 30 minutes on his own channel, Captain DadPool. So if any of you want to watch that. I don't have a channel yet. I'm still working towards it. I do make TikToks. A lot of times they are either me sharing memes or me sharing things that have made me really, really mad. I still need to make one about the 20 worst Supreme Court decisions that Republicans rated. And if those had been the results, I would never have published them because it is just all of the quiet parts out loud. But yeah, so and I also am on Twitter where I talk about the dangers of Christian nationalism and talk about my experiences of leaving Christianity and learning I'm demisexual and bisexual and non-binary and all those things. And then yeah, I share a lot of memes.
You really should start pulling your content over, KaRAYgeous, to YouTube. Just start posting it. Even if you only get like 100, 200 followers, whatever, you're already creating a base and you're just recycling your content.
I want to, and then I also am wanting to like sometime within like the next 6 months or so, I'm wanting to start a YouTube channel. It will just be this one, but I'll just change the like profile picture and logo and stuff and the name. It's going to be called KaRAYgeous Hearts. And I'm going to have 2 different segments. One is going to be called Listen, Learn, Lift Up. So about listening to marginalized voices, learning from their experiences and lifting those voices up. And then also one is going to be called Heart Talks, where it's people talking about their experiences within deconstruction and their journeys with that. So be kind of those 2 different segments together.
Awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on and for allowing me to bring all my amazing friends. Dr. Fry, anytime you're doing anything, I want to know about it because I love your work.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
I'm glad I got to meet you, Dr. Fry.
Yeah, so fun. I love these conversations. Me too. I like them. They're spicy.
Yeah, I expected an interesting discussion, but this was more interesting than I thought it'd be. So,
yay!
Thank you. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this one. Here in a little bit, everybody check out the description. I still need to put links in, but links will be down in the description tonight, as well as probably the comments section. So, yeah. So, take it easy, everyone, and see you in the next one. My fiance is demanding attention.
And your
Bye, fiance.
Yes.
Oh, and those kitties, yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Right.
Goodbye.
Take it easy, everybody.